Let's Podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovias inside the Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh, thanks to Empire Properties. And thanks to Copiers Plus for sponsoring, the presenting sponsor for Ovias and Giglio. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Small to medium-sized business, you could be wasting money not understanding your print cost. You think, set it, forget it. I got my toner, I got my paper. You don't know who's printing what. You don't know how much money you could be saving by putting stuff up in the cloud, and that's where Copiers Plus helps you out, Joe.
Yeah, copiers-plus.com. You don't know what you don't know. And in 2004, when I watched Duke beat Clemson at Wallace Wade Stadium, I didn't know I'd ever see Duke beat Clemson again in my lifetime.
I know.
Lo and behold, last night, out the gate from the jump, Duke
spur your magic.
Duke, no magic. Duke was the aggressor. Duke was the hungrier team. Duke was the faster team. Duke was the more physical team. Duke was the equally talented, if not more talented team. Duke was more poised than Clemson. What else is there? What am I missing?
No, I think
what did Clemson do last night other than look woefully? I mean, they looked like they were in black and white, and they might as well have been when you juxtapose it to what Florida State put on tape the night before.
Yeah, there's a lot of threads to pull on what we saw last night, and it is really easy to get into overreaction mode after week one. We do this all the time. We've done this with Clemson before.
But to be consistent with my point, talent matters. Talent travels. Just as you saw with Florida State, just as you saw with Colorado, you can't overreact when teams have conspicuous game-breaking talent. Clemson does not have those types of players anymore.
So, let's focus on Duke real quick, because I don't want to get caught. Speaking of things that you get caught in traps, I don't want to get caught in the trap of dismissing what Duke under Mike Elko has been able to do in just over a year's time. I think we all understood, as much as David Cutcliffe was a breath of fresh air to completely remake Duke football, and they're always going to have their ACC championship game appearance and their almost shoulda, woulda, coulda with Johnny Manziel in a bowl game when they played Texas A&M. At the end, and I don't know if it was the COVID season that ultimately did it, at the end, that was a broken program. And there's a lot of reasons why we got to that point. But I do think there's a similarity between David Cutcliffe and Dabo and why they're at their various points. Loyalty, stubbornness, okay? David Cutcliffe, stubborn at the end and elevated his guys. It became one of those things where I know you, here's this connection, I'm going to elevate you, that's the loyalty to the program. And he's still mad at Duke because he felt that they should have been loyal to him, all right? Dabo's in this position because of that loyalty and stubbornness. We'll get to that in a second, because I want to focus on what Mike Elko has done. So when I talk about where Duke was, it was
1-17 in the ACC the 2 years before he took over.
They did not look conditioned. They did not look focused. Mike Elko comes in and completely reformats that. And you could say that last year was lightning in a bottle. You could say last year was the schedule. And some of those things are true. But Riley Leonard is a dude, all right? And we've been caught up with Drake May, rightfully so. We've been caught up with Jordan Travis at Florida State. Totally get that, right? But Riley Leonard, under the radar, put on a spectacular season. If it wasn't for some red line or red zone miscues for Duke last year, they would have beat Carolina in a shootout where Riley Leonard was toe-to-toe with Drake May. And what was eye-popping to me, and why people should probably reassess what they think about Duke and this schedule and what we think about Clemson XYZ, is because Riley Leonard looked like the type of quarterback Clemson should have, not Duke, all right? And, of course, the story for Riley Leonard to get here is kind of wonky because he didn't even start the season. He wasn't even the projected starter, for heaven's sake.
Last year.
So it's just funny
they were pretty thick on the talking points last night.
Oh, yeah, they were.
He only played basketball. It was almost like ignoring what he actually did last year.
I know.
The play of the game, though, was the 44-yard run on third down on Duke's opening possession of the third quarter. The absolute play of the game. He looks like he's taken down for a loss, escapes, then outruns.
Yes.
Do you know how hard it is to outrun Clemson's defense?
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's really freaking hard.
I want to bring it back to moments when storied programs or programs that have been at the top and have hit a low point by their standards.
Yeah.
Based on what you see a local team here do to them. Riley Leonard's 44-yard run and the way he bounced off guys and powered through and, to your point, outran these Clemson defenders, which is shocking to me, was Carter Finley Stadium. I forgot the year, but it was Miami coming to play NC State.
Devin Hester.
No. Russell Wilson.
Oh, okay.
And I was there with my dad.
It's either 8 or 9.
I forgot what year it was. 08, 09. I was there with my dad. And Russell Wilson, I wish I could pull it up on YouTube, but the rights fees would probably kill me. He broke Miami defender ankles on a touchdown run that went like 50 or whatever yards. If I remember correctly, it was like 40, 50-yard run where he was just doing the Russell Wilson thing, and Miami looked outclassed.
Oh, it was 08 because it was the end of his first. It was the end of his first real year on the field.
And I looked at my dad and I said, what the hell has happened to Miami where this dude is making them look silly? So fast forward to last night at Wallace Wade Stadium where Riley Leonard has that breakout. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell has happened to Clemson and the talent? But you and I both know why they're in this position. Because Dabo, and it gets back to the stubbornness. Why are they here, Joe?
It's really difficult not to compare them to Florida State and what Florida State has done in the transfer portal. Sometimes it's okay to recruit guys out of high school, and understand you're going to develop some of them. And Florida State has done that, but half of their starters last night were out of the transfer portal for Florida State, including Keon Coleman, who you can't tell me he wasn't worth the $500,000 or whatever Florida State ended up paying for him to come from Michigan State.
Yeah,
he was a dynamic playmaker. Clemson just doesn't have that. They didn't have it last year either. That's got to be the frustrating part. If you're a Clemson fan, you're looking at Antonio Williams, you're looking at Bo Collins, and you're going, this is SOS, man. This is the same old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These guys weren't good enough last year. Why did you magically think hiring Garrett Riley was going to turn them into something that they're not?
Well, okay.
And I don't think you could fix a lack of talent. I think hiring Garrett Riley was still a smart move by Dabo. And I don't know if he's holding them back. I don't know any of this stuff.
No,
but a lot of that play calling last night was crap.
It's funny you bring that up.
A lot of screens. It looked a lot like NC State last year, to be perfectly honest with you. There was a lot of, hey, go get open. So okay.
So the Clemson folks that I follow on social media were definitely tweeting through it. And to your point about Garrett Riley, there was a big off season, like, all right, Dabo seems to have finally gotten religion.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, I still think that was a smart move.
It was a smart move. It absolutely was a smart move. But a couple of things. One, TCU last year to get to a national championship game, did they have more dudes than Clemson?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
particularly the skill positions.
That gets back to Dabo. All right. You've been stubborn. You're not going to the transfer portal. Number two, Dabo, and this is something that I had forgotten about, and some Clemson people were pointing this out, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can see their frustration. When they hired Garrett Riley and people were asking him questions about, well, what's this offense going to look like? What are you going to do? He talked about, well, no, we're running Clemson's offense. Well, then why'd you bring Garrett Riley in if you're just going to do the offense? It kind of reminded me of when Dave Dorn went co-offensive coordinators, and he kind of sold it as, well, look,
that's guys, the NC State offense.
It's the NC State offense.
Right.
How'd that work out for you?
Not well.
When a coach thinks that whatever system they've in place, and you can just plug and play some dude because you believe in your culture, when that happens, usually it bites you. It bites you in the ass. And that's where, again, back to the theme of this with Dabo, his stubbornness is biting him in the ass.
I just to stress this point about talent, and when you have guys, Clemson forever, when they walked onto a field, they knew we had Travis Etienne. They knew we have Sammy Watkins. They knew we had Nuke Hopkins. They knew we had better players than you. And that builds that swag, that builds that confidence where you go, I don't care, put the ball down, let's go, let's play.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Clemson last night, and they panicked from the jump. When Duke was hitting them on the mouth on those terrible screen plays, it was like, uh-oh, we're not just going to run around Duke. And they had some success with Will Shipley on the ground. Will Shipley with his 24 relatives who graduated from NC State, who somehow made the colossal error of going to Clemson. This might be the curse of Will Shipley. I'm just going to put it out there.
Stop it.
I'm just going to put it out there. This might be, you cross the wolf blood. but they don't have guys.
Is that another Law of the Wolf for you?
Yeah, new one.
Is that a new one?
But they don't have that confidence that's built in that goes, okay, heck, we could be down 21-7 in the fourth quarter, and we're going to scrap and claw and win this game just because we're better than you are. Mm-hmm. We're more talented than you are. When you don't have that swag, when you don't play with that confidence, you sit there and you start to doubt everything. And Cade Klubnik looked like a guy last night whose girlfriend dumped him the night before.
Dude,
he looked completely out of sorts. He was airmailing passes. He was panicking in the pocket. He was bumbling and fumbling snaps around the goal line. He was bumbling and fumbling exchanges with his running back. And it was just like, he has talent for sure. But again, the problem is when you have a standard, and that standard is Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, it's the same one that DJ Uiagalelei failed. When you aren't that guy, man, it's really hard for your fans to unsee that supernova that they had in Watson and Lawrence.
All our conversations about college football brought to you by Wings Over Raleigh, Wings Over Chapel Hill, Wings Over Greenville. I'm actually going to be headed to Wings Over on Saturday after Jacob's done with his hockey game. I'm going to go pick some up, go hang out with neighbor Rick, and watch some college football.
We've got gift cards.
Let's go.
We're going to give some of those away in the mixtape this week because the mixtape's back. We've also got, go check them out online. This is the best thing to do. Go to wingsover.com, order your food. They have parking in the back in Raleigh on Hillsborough Street. You know how hard that is to come by?
Yes.
Get the sweet chili wings. I'm telling you, they're the bomb.
All right. So you had tweeted this out. Good teams win.
Yep.
Great teams cover, right?
Yes. A common refrain amongst us gamblers.
And we can sit here and talk about, man, Mike Elko was just unbelievable last year, 9-4, turning things around at Duke. And they beat Clemson last night, but Giglio has an even more impressive stat for Mike Elko on the yellow pad here. He's 10-4 against the spread.
Yeah, including a 6-1 mark as an underdog.
Jeez, man. So what? They didn't cover against who did they not cover against?
Last year?
Yeah, last year.
I'd have to go through the whole. That's just their number, what it was. It's probably when they were obviously their problems were when they were a favorite.
Oh, okay. I got you. So, all right. Good for
just eyeballing it.
Good for them, man.
I mean, that's not easy to do. Look at Miami. Some of it's public too, right? Like Miami's a very public team. They're almost always going to be a favorite.
Yes.
So Mario Cristobal last year goes 2-10 against the number. And I've asked you before, at what point are we going to start getting mad at coaches, not for not winning, but for not covering
next year?
But it's like a double whammy for Mario Cristobal.
Yeah,
like
you don't win and you don't cover.
He was terrible.
And in Miami,
I know against the number, right? I mean, that's kind of hard to do.
Yes.
So just kind of looking at it, looks like Georgia Tech last year, obviously they lost 2-3, would have been a problem. Pitt, they lost 2-2 there, and then Wake. No, they beat Wake, so they would have been an underdog in that game. So yeah, I mean, Duke's look what they did last night, the way that they outplayed Clemson. And when I talk about urgency, and when I talk about pouring it out, when I talk about seizing an opportunity, Duke did all those things last night.
So last night too was pretty wild. This is from Chapel Fowler, who covers Clemson for McClatchy, and I'm just going to go ahead and play the video. This was a fierce storm of the field. I mean, I've seen it before. I've seen after a Duke Carolina game, people running out onto the field and everything else. But what happened last night? Goodness gracious, man!
And you know, there was a good chunk of Clemson fans there, but that crowd shot right there shows you Duke's got fans, man.
Yeah.
They got a 9-4 year. They're starting to believe, and that Notre Dame game all of a sudden looks like it could be really interesting for Sam Hartman's return. Second return to the triangle in the month of September.
Shout out to Jameson, who made fun of the Chick-fil-A commercial that was running last night, where a guy was like he was like really in his feels because he sent his daughter off to college, and the Chick-fil-A person was helping them out. I pulled into the drive-thru and I'm telling her I'm having a hard time. Yeah, definitely needed that. Speaking of having a hard time, South Carolina is having a hard time. I really enjoyed this tweet from Ryan McGee, our friend over at ESPN. Clemson, L. South Carolina, L. Greenville, L. North Green, Wofford, L. The Citadel, loss. Coastal Carolina, loss. South Carolina State's already lost twice. Presbyterian, loss. Erskine, loss. Last time the state of South Carolina had a weekend this bad was because of Sherman. Dang, Ryan.
Ouch.
Dang, Ryan. And the last thing about last night, I think it's highly relatable as well. We've all been there. Shout out to the ref who was adjusting himself. That was caught on camera in the middle of the game. No context college football. Grab that. I looking at that just, to me, that's how I envision Florida State fans watching that Clemson game last night going, oh,
guess who's back?
We're back, baby.
Guess who's running this league again?
So I've had this, I don't know if you've had this conversation with your kids. You have boys. And I've had this conversation with Caleb and Jacob. It's like, you don't want to adjust yourself so demonstratively out in public.
Right.
You have to find the ways to subtly do it. So I taught them like you just be standing with your friends and all of a sudden, you just kind of like, you just kind of stretch.
Little adjustment.
You stretch like, oh, you okay? It's like, oh, my hamstring. Just kind of stretching it out. My calves are kind of locking up. That's how you separate the boys in the best way possible. But our guy last night, he was just getting right in there, making sure that he was well adjusted. A little bit of housekeeping for you as we are getting ready for a couple more podcasts throughout the week. You got Law of the Wolf, you've got Picks and Pizza, and we have a new young gun, the final one of the preseason as we get ready for the start of the Carolina Panthers season. Dimitri Ravanos and Lauren Brownlow focusing solely on Bryce Young. By the way, there were some points made about Alabama and how much Bryce Young kind of masked Alabama's talent issues with Nick Saban. That's another issue that Dabo really is coming home to roost. If you don't have the right quarterback, all your other issues are going to be hyper-focused. Yeah. And that's what they're talking about with Young Gun as we get ready for the start of the season. Very excited about that. What do you got coming up on Law of the Wolf?
I got a conversation with Jalen Samuels.
Sam, your guy.
Since, Notre Dame hasn't been here since 16.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Sam played in that game. I'm excited to catch up to him.
Also, a reminder that you can get t-shirts for Ovies and Giglio. Go to breakingt.com/OG. Again, that's breakingt.com/OG. And you can buy a variety of our t-shirts from there. Don't worry, we get a percentage. So we appreciate everybody who's purchased t-shirts and put those things out on social media. Speaking of fans and customers, Breeze Through has their customer appreciation this Thursday from 11 to 1. They're going to have a food truck and all that fun stuff. But most importantly, they're going to have $1.76 gallons of gas.
Yeah.
That's huge. We're going to be doing the show from the Breeze Through at PNC, Carter Finley. They're off at Edwards Mill and Trinity from the Beer Cave. Be bundled up.
Are you ready?
Joe. Oh, I'm ready. In fact, I got to text Adam today about I'm going to be getting there around 9 o'clock to set up, maybe a little earlier. I want to make sure the equipment's right because we're going to do this thing live on YouTube at 10 o'clock on Thursday.
I'm excited. That's our first live.
So let's go. I'm excited about that. Big thanks to Breeze Through. And big thanks to Oak City Sports Cards. Oak City, where you buy, sell, trade, most importantly, grade. I was making jokes about, what I saw in memorabilia and how much they were charging. To your point, to Weston's point, it's worth what people think it's worth, but you got to get it graded first to get a good idea.
Yeah, go check them out off of Glenwood Avenue in downtown or go to oakcitycards.com.
Also, big thanks to Whitaker and Hamer for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio. They are attorneys at law and counselors at law. You can check them out at wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer.
Maybe I can get them to drop a contract that says I don't have to talk about the new additions to the ACC. I don't need to acknowledge them.
I don't know about that. I don't know about
have them stick to family law. Maybe if we sell this business, we'll figure it out. They can help you too. It's wh.lawyer.
Mixtape is back, Joe, and we got one of our listeners, Justin, jumping on to play Mixtape. Justin, what's going on, man?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Wait, is that an App State hat I see on you?
It certainly is.
And you mess with that? You actually like us? I thought App State fans didn't like us.
Well, I'm 100% App, so we don't have to worry about split allegiances.
Aha!
See? It's a man who lives by a code.
He lives by a code. I like that. All right, so Mixtape is a little bit different now since we don't have the rights to play music. So what we do is we get some of our friends to read lyrics for us, and if you can name the song based on the verse, then you're going to win a tumbler. We got State Farm tumblers from Matt.
We have one Breeze Through tumbler left.
Still
with OG. We have 3 tumblers from Matt, and we have the $25 gift cards to Wings Over.
Very excited.
We also have tickets to Carolina, but let's see what Justin can do.
So here's how it's going to work. We have Stacy. She is a friend of ours, Graphics House. She's actually working on a sign for us, is she not?
She is.
Very
Yes.
excited about that.
Or jeans.
Wait. Whoa. Start your jeans. Ooh, what's that about? So she's at Graphics House. So go check them out at graphicshouse.com. Here she is. Let's see if I can get this, properly playing here. Are you ready, Justin?
I'm giving my best.
You see it on your screen?
You see it on your screen?
Yes, see her? Yes.
All right, here we go.
Your jeans were once so clean. I bet you've changed your wardrobe since we've met. Now, oh, so easily, you're over me. Gone is love. It's that you ought to be holding me. I'm not containable. This time, love is not sustainable. I ain't freaking. I ain't faking this.
You got a guess, Justin?
This is not in my wheelhouse.
I'm assuming that's country.
No,
not country. Okay. I thought that was country for it. It's the accent that's messing with me, man. The accent is so messing with me.
I was already going to be bad enough if it was going to be the actual song. That's just a whole nother level right there. Oh, man.
Pretty sure it was in an Apple commercial if you'd like a hint.
I mean, the only song I can think of with jeans would be like Billie Jean from Michael Jackson, but I know that's certainly not it.
That's not it. All right, Justin, I need an official guess, Justin.
Billie Jean.
No.
So, Justin, you're in the demographic of people who are slightly younger than us, who are interested in this program and listen to podcasts. So I tried to go for songs in like the 2010s and the early 2000s. This is from the Ting Tings. This is Shut Up and Let Me Go.
Oh.
So the key there was, I ain't freaking, I ain't faking this. I ain't freaking, I ain't faking this. Yeah, Shut up and let me go.
You got me on that one, man. You got me on that one. All right, Justin. Sorry, man. Didn't win, but we have something for Justin.
Yeah, for being true to his school and disavowing just being true to his school.
Yeah.
How about that? For being true to his school, we're going to send you to see App State, your Mountaineers, against.
Get smoked this weekend by Carolina. I'm at least a realist of the same fact that I don't think we're going to win, but we're going to go and we're going to give them we're going to cheer.
Then they had to go to their second quarterback already, right?
Well, he looked better than Berger anyway, so I mean, maybe that'll help.
In that win. So yeah, sometimes I'm wondering if the consolation prizes are better than the actual prize for winning.
We only have one of these left, so I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's a rare item.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It's rare.
Justin, appreciate it, man. Take it easy. Enjoy the game. Hopefully, App State, gives you a little something to root for at this game.
I hope so.
All right, man. Take it easy,
guys.
I don't know, man. You're making these mixtapes. You think I was hard with the mixtape, dude?
All I was trying to do was to appeal to our demographic. Now, granted, that was a difficult one. They will get a little bit easier. They're also highly entertaining with Stacy, though.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. Now, speaking of things that are difficult, do you think that the Carolina Panthers will have a more difficult time winning their opener without Brian Burns?
Man, I've heard of quiet quitting before. I don't even know what you would call this, because it just felt like all preseason, well, Brian Burns isn't playing because they just want to save him and make sure he's healthy.
Yeah.
Well, so that's not really the case.
No, essentially,
what's going on here?
I saw this phrased as, instead of it being a holdout for Brian Burns, who's got his fifth year. Real quick context. Both he and Nick Bosa with the 49ers, and Brian Burns, both of those guys had their fifth-year options picked up. So Nick Bosa is going to get $17.859 million this upcoming season.
Which sounds good, but
it's not. And Burns is scheduled to make just slightly over $16 million this upcoming season for the Carolina Panthers.
Which sounds good, but
not. Bosa wants to be the highest paid defensive player in the NFL.
Okay.
So you're looking at around $32 million annually. Now,
so double.
Is Brian Bursa? I'm confusing names here. Is Brian Burns on the level of Nick Bosa?
I think so.
Okay. So you're waiting on Nick Bosa to set the market. Nick Bosa is going to get more money than Brian Burns. So my guess is that the Carolina Panthers are waiting to see what Bosa does to set the market with the 49ers before they decide to finally put pen to paper on this
new contract. But Burns has actually been in camp and practicing.
And that's until now.
Okay.
Until now. He didn't show up through walkthroughs. He didn't show up yesterday. And I started texting some of our Panthers friends. Because look, I'll admit, man, I was in travel hockey dad mode. I mean, I was keeping up with the local football teams, but in terms of like the day-to-day Panthers stuff, like I'm like, yeah, let's just get ready for week one. Until yesterday, I see, Burns didn't show up again today. And I texted my Panthers friends. And I said, hey, so a little context here. What's going on? And the 3 people I texted all said the same thing. Wake me up when Wednesday arrives. If he's not at practice on Wednesday, then we can have a serious conversation. Frank Reich was actually asked about this at his availability this week and what exactly is going on here. And it's a pretty interesting exchange between Reich, Joe Person, and others who cover the Panthers.
That was a personal matter to him. I'll defer to him on that.
Frank, any concern he may not be available in week one?
Again, I'm going to defer. I'll defer to Brian on that. I mean, just as I wouldn't say this about, I just would generally speak and say about any of our players, just that, I would, anyway, I'll just defer to Brian on that.
On that note, we heard you all summer praise him, others praise him for being here. And now on the cusp of the season, it doesn't seem like he's a participant. Your concerns and what do you say to the rest of the team?
Great. I love that question. I appreciate you asking that question because, my view of Brian Burns doesn't diminish at all. We understand there's a business side to this to this thing we do. And I still respect and admire the way he's handled himself. And, so I have nothing but the highest regard for Brian Burns.
So that's Frank Reich getting questions about Brian Burns, including one from Joe Person there. And speaking of the business, hey, very excited to tell you that our Panthers conversations this year brought to you by Graffiti in downtown Cary. You might know Graffiti from its various appearances on the 919 Vice podcast. Wayne Holt, Adam Eschbaugh run that place. It's a great spot. They got a bunch of you might think of it as axe throwing and getting some great bourbon, but tell you what, you can actually watch football.
I was going to say, there's a tie in here.
There's a tie in here. They got all the TVs. They got the Sunday package. And most importantly, bourbon. Now on Tuesday nights, they do the break even night where if you want to have been trying these bourbons and you try to go to the ABC store and they're super expensive and you just don't want to invest hundreds of dollars on a bourbon, you get a 1 ounce pour break even price at Graffiti. They're doing more of this on specials on Sunday while you watch football. So go check it out at Graffiti. So that's Frank Reich talking about Brian Burns. And I'm very much of the opinion that it's not a thing until it becomes a thing.
Sure.
It's only Tuesday. It's not a thing yet. Let's wait, Joe.
But to kind of answer the question there about what would happen, the Carolina Panthers are very much like the Clemson Tigers. They only have so many guys that are difference makers.
Right.
And Brian Burns is one of those difference makers. And some of the grace that you've tried to show the Panthers in this preseason defensively has been, well, yeah, but Burns isn't playing.
We haven't seen him play.
And he is a huge difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
If he can't play, oof, that's not good for them.
You can also tell that frustration.
Or if he won't play.
You can tell that frustration from Frank Reich. We've actually seen this a couple of times already where coaches are at odds with what the general manager and the owner want in terms of financials. Frank Reich just wants his best players available to win some freaking football games.
Please, in the opener, yes, in a game that they could absolutely win against Atlanta.
Absolutely, but it's really going to be difficult if you don't have Burns, and that's at odds with what management wants in terms of contracts and future salary cap considerations and everything else. Management always wants to win in these cases anyway. They don't want to make these guys the highest paid players. It's fine. I get it. So that frustration bubbled over with Reich when he got pressed some more on the availability of Brian Burns for week one.
I'm at the stage in this where I'm not involved in the contract negotiation at all. Zero. I have zero. At this point, I've expressed, Mr. Tepper and Scott asked me my views of certain things. I've expressed my views. I'm just worried about beating Atlanta, getting our team ready to play Atlanta. Really, that's all that's on my mind. And do I hope that he's there? Absolutely. I hope he's there. But if he's not there, I'm not worried about it. Just move forward.
We're on to Cincinnati, Joe.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you panic if he doesn't show up tomorrow. That's you definitely get into that mode.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some frustration there because the way you construct a team, all of those formulas included Brian Burns being a guy pressuring the opponent's quarterback.
All right, one other football note, one other NFL note before we bring on Luke DeCock of the News and Observer. I think you and I have established in the years that we've been doing this show that we can get a sense of whether or not this coach is going to work out for this team based on how he talks, how he presents himself.
Yes.
Right?
Now, Nick Sirianni did throw us off a little with the Eagles.
He did. And to a certain extent, my guy in Detroit has kind of put, the Lions in a position where they're kind of a trendy pick. I get all that stuff. But for the most part, our hit rate on, this ain't going to work, buddy.
Right.
It's pretty good. So let's present Jonathan Gannon.
Okay.
New head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals have their own issues that they have to work through. We talked about this last week, where they're going to name like Kyler Murray the captain, and he's not even going to play this season potentially, right? And who they put? Was it Josh Dobbs? Who they're going to start?
Yeah, they picked up Josh Dobbs and going to start him after using Colt McCoy in their first 2 preseason games.
All right, so this also ties into a conversation we've had a lot about Hard Knocks and how NFL teams are their own content factories. The Carolina Panthers have done an amazing job with their Camp Confidential, Processing Blue, and everything else. So here's the Arizona Cardinals' first iteration of their Hard Knocks style show called Light. It's called with Cardinals Flight Plan, okay? And Light the Fire. Here's Gannon welcoming everybody. You tell me if it's going to work out, Joe.
Welcome back. Who drove over here? Quick, let me see your hands. Who took the bus? Did you have fire in your gut? Did you? We're here for a reason. Don't get that twisted. Okay, we're here for a reason to win games. So if you didn't have that fire in your gut, you better light the fire pretty fast. Be who you are. Just understand, I'm looking for killers.
The way he just so casually says, "Did you have that fire in your gut?" Like,
hold on.
Welcome back.
Okay.
Who drove over here?
Okay. Did you carpool? Did you use 87? Or did you go premium? Do you have an EV? Do you got that new Lightning? Or are you a Tesla guy?
Quick, let me see your hands. Who took the bus?
Bus? Who took the...
They're in the NFL.
Who took public transport? Who Ubered here? What? Okay, cool.
Nothing wrong with Ubering.
Nothing wrong with Ubering. All right, where's this going? All right, where's this going? Is he trying to determine who's who based on how they got here? Okay, cool.
Did you have fire in your gut?
While I was driving over? I mean, if I had a fire in my gut, I probably had bad breakfast. Maybe I should not have had that Cajun filet biscuit combo on my way over here if I have fire in my gut on my way over here.
Did you?
What I love is that they're showing all the players in this clip, and they're all just looking at them like, what are you getting at with this? So I will present the question finally to you.
So he worked with Nick Sirianni last year. So maybe he's studying the Nick Sirianni playbook of awkward starts. But if you have fire in your gut, like you're like Ed Orgeron or you're like Dan Campbell, you're not, Professor Gannon.
Are you going to work
with the slideshow?
True, that's a good point. So is this going to work?
I mean, there's many reasons why it's probably not. All right. I'll stick with that.
Okay. Big thanks to Home Field for sponsoring Ovias and Gilio. Check them out online at homefieldapparel.com. And you can use the promo code OG23 to save 15% off your first order. All the great vintage-inspired collegiate gear is right there.
Yeah, I bought us a bunch of stuff for the OG Golf Classic to give away as prizes.
Nice.
Including that Tar Heels script, man. I keep telling you, they have the best UNC and ECU stuff. Go use the code OG23. Download the app too. Home Field Apparel.
Also, big thanks to Hometown Realty. Check them out, myhtr.com. Guaranteed offers. I don't know. I'm not so sure about that.
Don't sell yourself short.
I mean, we're talking homes that go over list price. Why do you want to sell yourself short? Don't do it.
Take care of your number one investment. Trust Hometown Realty. You could trust Barry Woodard and his crew. More than 250 agents, 6 locations. Go to myhtr.com.
And you just bought a house. You know what you need for that house? Insurance. So what do? Contact Matt Davis. InsureGarner.com, TheOGInsurance.com will redirect you to that. Or you can just give him a call because there is a human on the other end. It's local in Garner, 919-779-8277.
Best billboard going. What happens when you actually want to talk to a person? What? Such a business concept. Matt Davis is a smart dude. Check him out, TheOGInsurance.com.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, columnist, News and Observer. It's an ACC Now Tuesday. He is Luke DeCock. Luke, did you walk with Dabo back to the visitors' locker room? The long walk. Did you chronicle that? Because you remember he's been complaining about it. I felt like after getting just, I don't even know what to call what I saw at Wallace Wade Stadium.
They got dragged.
Did it seem longer for him to walk back to the visitors' locker room?
I was busy looking for Steve Spurrier because I desperately needed to hear him say, "Well, it was good to see Dabo." I needed that so badly. I needed the ultimate Spurrier.
Tweet that. So anyway, look, Joe and I talked about this earlier, and I know you wrote about this in the paper today, that after Florida State and North Carolina kind of set the tone for what we think are the top level teams in the ACC, you would expect Clemson, from all the offseason talk and Dabo making changes and Dabo doubling down on what he believes, that they would also have a statement game against a very quality conference opponent in Duke that went 9-4 last year. And I am flabbergasted how it looked very much like last year's Clemson team. And I got to imagine that DJ Uiagalelei was just sipping tea while watching Cade Klubnik struggle again.
Maybe DJ wasn't the problem, right? Who was out here last night? Then Mike Elko, DJ. No, I mean, I just think, I said this to people. I have witnesses. Watching Clemson warm up, this is before the ball was kicked, that is the least visibly impressive Clemson team I've ever seen. There are no Dexter Lawrences or Isaiah Simmonses walking around the field during warmups. It is Duke fought them to a draw in the getting off the bus challenge, and you haven't been able to say that about Clemson for 15 years. There are no dudes on Clemson. As I joked during the game, there was a screen grab of Riley Leonard getting swarmed over in the backfield moments before he escapes for a 44-yard touchdown. And I just tweeted it with like Clemson's 300 recruiting coordinators all scrawling needs equal ballers on the index cards and sending them out because Clemson has no ballers. It's a pedestrian, ordinary. Their wide receivers have zero jump to them. I mean, Duke covered them easily. There was nothing open. I think Clemson's front seven won the battle of the line of scrimmage with Duke. Duke really did struggle to run the ball. I think you have to give Clemson credit for that, but it looks like a good defensive front. I mean, State's had defensive fronts that looked like that. It did not look like the Clemson front sevens we're used to seeing. And Duke was by far the more physical team, especially in the secondary. And overall, top to bottom, by far the more explosive team. I mean, Riley Leonard outran Clemson's secondary. Let that filter into your mind for a second.
Luke, I remember watching Duke struggle with North Carolina A&T in cuts last year. And I specifically remember looking at their secondary going, holy smokes, these guys need to hit a weight room. Yeah. I want to give Mike Elko credit and his strength coach credit because I feel like, you correct me if I'm wrong, this hasn't been a Florida State situation at Duke. I mean, they have some transfers. They had the kid on the offensive line from Colorado. They got the Blades kid in the secondary. But for the most part, this feels like a guy coming in and just whipping people into shape the old-fashioned way and scheming them up. Am I crazy here?
No, and I think part of that is because when you look at what went wrong with Duke during the end of the Cutcliffe era, some of it wasn't all talent. They still had some players. They still recruited some guys. Things had gone stale. They lost. It was brain drain primarily. They lost a lot of really good coaches who they couldn't replace or didn't have the money to replace. And, Mike Elko was given a much bigger staff budget. That's not to absolve Cut of all blame. I mean, that's a head coach's responsibility to do what you're talking about on top of everything else. I mean, you can recruit guys who are at Duke who are okay and try to turn them into good to great players, but you still got to do it. And Elko's staff certainly has. But, I think the one thing is you look at Duke's secondary now, and it looks like ACC players. It's not a bunch of 5'7", 5'8" guys. These guys are 6 feet tall. They're 200 pounds. They're willing to get physical with Adam Randall, who I think had 1 catch all night. I mean, they're willing to get physical with the other Clemson wide receivers. Will Shipley looked good, but he had a key turnover. Phil Maffa looked okay, but he had a key turnover. You look at Clemson's players, their stars didn't play that well. Their alleged stars didn't play that well. Cade Klubnik, we've seen a lot of quarterback play like that in the triangle over the years. And there's nothing about that kid that.
Well, I mean, look, I made this. I made this point. I made this point last night that all you needed to know about Cade Klubnik was last year, because Dabo, when he knows he has the guy coming up, he has 0 issues, and there's precedent for him to take a perfectly capable quarterback out of the rotation and put
for the guy
that's going to put him over the top. And for as many struggles as they had last year, and they did this on the broadcast a bunch about all the games that Cade Klubnik had played at Clemson and the minutes he'd put in, but he never started a game. And this was his first start as the Clemson starter. And it's like, right. We never heard that about Trevor Lawrence. We never heard about that with Deshaun Watson when Dabo made the move.
Yeah.
And that to me was a bigger indication of who Cade Klubnik was going into this year. But did they have enough guys around him to overcome that? I think we have the answer on that. But I do think, and we'll transition to this with, week 1 being in the books, we do have a tendency to get a little wrapped up. We've seen this out of Clemson before where they've looked shaky at the beginning, but the rest of the ACC struggles to overcome that, and they can ring. We saw this last year where they can wring out games and find ways to win because their defense can still be good enough. So the question is that going to play out going forward based on what you've seen out of week 1? Or did what Florida State did to LSU, how North Carolina looked against South Carolina? This is a different kind of ACC that Clemson might not be able to eke out another championship.
This looks like a different Clemson team to me. As I said before the game even started, they look, oceans rise, empires fall. I mean, it just looks like the wave is crested on Clemson here. Now, you're right. We've sort of hinted at that before. I don't think I've ever looked at Clemson the way I did last night and said, oof. You look at Clemson and say, man, I think if you look at Clemson last year, you'd say, oh man, these guys, they're struggling. They got to get it together. But you looked at them and said, but they can get it together.
Sure.
They have the NFL guys, they have the talent. I mean, there were 4 GMs and 32 scouts there last night. I mean, it was like an NFL convention in the press box. And one, it's the greatest job in the world because you get to leave at the end of the third quarter. But number 2, those guys did not have the look of them of this was worth our time. I mean, I think those guys probably thought that was a valuable trip because they could cross some guys off their list. It was just the level of explosiveness, athleticism, size, all the things that we take for granted on the Clemson defense. It's just not there. And so when you say, can Clemson turn it around and start grinding out wins? Maybe. But the other thing you have to remember is that losing to Duke on opening night on national TV, still Duke. I mean, Duke is Duke. It's still Duke. The mystique, is the Clemson mystique still there?
No.
I mean, is anybody going to look at them now and say, shit, excuse me, say,
if 2 weeks, 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. I'll have to let Elizabeth
do it in the paper. If Duke can body up Clemson like this, and look, Dabo was talking about the strangest game he's ever seen. Duke gave Clemson 10 to 13 points, depending on 10 to 14 points, depending on how you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. This was not 28-7 was not out of whack. Did Clemson have some turnovers at the goal line and field and special teams miscues? Sure. So did Duke. They fought that battle to a draw. Duke beat them in other areas of the game and beat them soundly. So if I'm anyone else on Clemson's schedule, and certainly Florida State, I'm looking at Clemson and saying, well, hey, the worm has turned, man. This is not the Clemson we've been doing. I don't think first of all, no one's going to be intimidated warming up across the field from Clemson. No. I'll tell you that right now. Clemson has won games at the 50-yard line an hour and a half before kickoff. Let's not pretend that's not true. I mean, I think they won the State game, the Ryan Finley game, whatever that was, 4 or 5 years ago, just once State got a look at Clemson down there at Death Valley because State came out playing scared. Mm-hmm. And it was never in that game. I mean, Ryan Finley airmailed a pass on the second play of the game, wide open guy, airmailed it by 30 feet. State was out of that mentally before that game even started. That's not going to happen this year. So you look over at Clemson and you see whatever. You see Duke, you see Carolina, you see a team you think you can beat.
Speaking of the Wolfpack, I'm sure somewhere in the Murphy Center last night, somebody was watching that game and thinking to themselves, so we finally get rid of divisions and Clemson decides to go back to Clemsoning. Okay, got it. Look, I think I enjoyed the fact that everybody was pointing out that coastal chaos still lives with Duke beating Clemson last night in the opener. All right, we'll get out of here on this because we're going to have to add some teams to this chaos. I mean, all things considered, though, it was a very good weekend for the ACC and our new friends.
Listen, I'm not acknowledging the new teams. Just so you know,
but it was a great
going
weekend.
forward, I'm not acknowledging the new teams.
We're absolutely taking it in because it was a great weekend too.
You can.
It was a terrible weekend for the state of Texas, other than SMU, and it was a terrible weekend for South Carolina. It's all coming up roses for the ACC, baby. Come on, why not? So. I think you, me, Giglio, I would say the three of us probably came out the hardest, going hardest in the paint, in reacting to what the ACC did going into the weekend of week one by adding Cal, Stanford, and SMU officially with all the financial tricks that they're trying to make this work. And sometimes I wonder, it's like the old Principal Skinner meme, like, am I out of touch? No, it is.
No, it's the ACC, yes.
And looking at other takes on this and seeing how national media kind of gets wrapped up in, wow, they're bringing in $75 million, or here's what they bring to the table. Sometimes I feel, Luke, that the three of us, are we on an island here when it comes to this? Are we the crazy ones for being anti-expansion?
Are we the baddies? I don't know. I feel like, and I've been relatively consistent in this since May, that if you take a look at the state of the television market right now, and you understand the dynamics of NBC's next deal with Notre Dame, and you understand the fact, what television networks are looking for when they're negotiating with college conferences, that this is just not something you would do. You, one, wouldn't act right now. You, two, wouldn't add these schools. And three, you would do this if the grant of rights expired in 2028. Everything that we've talked about for the last 2 years about the grant of rights, I don't know why you would act so presumptively. I was in a conversation with someone very much on the inside of this who kept telling me that all of these issues I raised were hypotheticals. And I was stunned. I was like, your entire logic for this is based on a hypothetical.
Right.
You're adding schools in case schools leave. That's a bigger hypothetical than anything I've expressed. I feel like, when you get university presidents in a room and you start throwing numbers like 600 million or 75 million in front of them, they all just get like the Scrooge McDuck $ eyes and throw reason out the window.
And it's not, by the way, it's not just the money too. And I know you and I've talked about this, and I brought it up yesterday. NC State doesn't flip without getting something in return. And I got to imagine, as Randy Woodson has other initiatives that he's trying to tackle, hey man, get into the AAU, something they've been trying to do. They don't have certain, like NC State doesn't have certain things that automatically get you in that conversation. Like they don't have a hospital, right?
Right.
But as a research institution that takes itself very seriously, and they invest in that library, they invest in the engineering, they have all these things that they're trying to ramp up. Being in the AAU kind of matters to guys like Randy Woodson. And
it does, but does it? My question would be to you guys as state alumni: does being in the AAU matter to you?
No.
I think what matters to state alumni is we want our athletic teams to beat Carolina. We want our basketball team to go to the NCAA tournament. We want our football team to go to a bowl game that's not in Shreveport. And this isn't going to help that. You're basically taking something that university presidents care about very much and obtaining that in exchange for selling out athletics. I think the narrative on NC State 10 years down the road is going to be Randy Woodson sold out athletics to get into the AAU. I may be wrong about that, but that certainly I think is the way. And then is it worth it? Was it worth it to join the AAU? We're in the AAU, now we can get in the Big Ten, but you're not going to have a lot of help there.
No, you're not going to have a lot of help there. And also there is a sentiment out there that NC State fans are perfectly okay with not being in line with North Carolina because they don't trust North Carolina to help them out. Of course, the flip side of that would be, well, this is where you use your political leverage to behind the scenes, not just in the rivalry sense, but behind the scenes at the NCGA to make it work for you, unless you think that it's not going to work, that you really do not trust North Carolina. And see, here's the thing though. I don't blame any institution for not trusting any other institution, because how many examples do we need to show you that institutions are going to do what they want to do? Right down to the conferences, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, I would just say to that, when we talk about state and Carolina and the legislature and stuff like that, I think state has a much better case going to whoever the 2029 equivalent of Berger and Moore is, and saying, hey, look, we've acted in unity with them. We've pulled on one rope. Now is the time for everyone to pull together and band together. We fight on the field, but we're together on the board of governors and all that stuff. And now it's going to be like the Carolina, grads in the legislature are going to be like, buddy,
nah,
good luck. Have a good time. At least you're going to get to play East Carolina and App every year.
Well, Joe's all about that.
Hey, you could make the argument that if what you really care about is winning football games and tailgating and playing teams that you hate, you're going to be better off playing App State and ECU than UNC and Duke. I mean, it requires a step down in ambition, but if you want to hang banners and beat up on people you work with and all those things, you let Carolina go to the SEC and you end up in the, Randy Woodson traded the AAU for the AAC.
Yeah.
Go beat up on South Florida.
I do love how Joe's is kind of like, I know Giglio's face. I know Giglio's face. He's got that face of, I have so many things I want to say, but it's probably for the best that I don't.
I think Luke's covered most of them. I think everyone who's playing this, Randy Woodson is playing 4D chess by getting an AAU, like that matters. Come on. When I was in school, state wanted to become a Phi Beta Kappa. They wanted a Phi Beta Kappa chapter, right? Yeah. Like that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Has that? What's that done?
When I was at NC State,
it's a different sphere. It's got nothing to do with sports.
I was in the college of management, and the whole thing for the college of management was getting into whatever the accreditation was for, like, to be like a series for the MBAs and all that stuff. They sold that. They kept selling that as a student. Of course, as a student, I was just, C's are for degrees, man. D's are for diploma. I was just trying to get out and get to my WK&C shift. So that's ultimately what it's about. But oh well, it's happening. And I guess at this point, we should probably make the most out of it. So we'll close on this, Luke, with this new expanded ACC that's going to start in 2024. Where do you want the ACC tournament? We going to Vegas? Are we going?
I want to play in Dallas now.
Have you talked to Tom Dundon about his Frisco facilities?
We're going to play it. We got a couple spots. We're going to play it in the Moody Center in Austin with Matthew McConaughey hosting.
Let's go.
We're going to go to the biggest little city in the world. We're going to play it in the bowling auditorium in Reno where they filmed Kingpin. That's now in the footprint. Let's get excited about that. And I think we're gonna play it on Catalina Island, and you're gonna have to take a ferry over.
Oh, I love that.
Every day from LA. Yeah, it's so dumb.
What's the name of the old stadium in San Francisco? The old football stadium? I can't remember now.
Candlestick?
No, not Candlestick. It's like
Kezar?
Yes, Kezar Stadium.
Can we outdoor at Kezar? How about the Cow Palace?
Hey, now we're talking.
Here's all that. Can you imagine all the Carolina fans? The state's gonna feel right at home in the Cow Palace.
Luke DeCock, columnist, News and Observer. All right, man. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you later. Big thanks to Luke DeCock for hanging out with us here on Ovias and Giglio, and big thanks to Butcher's Market for sponsoring Ovias and Giglio. Check them out across the triangle and in Wilmington as well.
Wilmington, they got those steak and cheese sandwiches now that you can buy in their stores, but never mind that right now, Joe. It's tailgate week.
Let's go.
State at home at noon on Saturday. They make their own sausage. They make their own hot dogs. They make their own bacon. Go get it. Go get ready for that tailgate, man.
And you might be tailgating at home. You might not be headed out to the football field. No big deal. You might be grilling at home. You don't want mosquitoes messing that up. You don't want pests messing that up. So you contact Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check out bugsbite.com. I know I'm going to be hanging out in the backyard watching football this weekend, and Mosquito Authority has been treating my yard all summer long. It's still hot into the fall. Mosquitoes can still be active. They can take care of that. And they can also take care of the critters in your house.
Yeah, get rid of the bugs outside the house. Get rid of those ants inside the house. Get rid of those mice in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
And the moisture barrier, that 360 moisture barrier, is a game changer underneath your house. Go check out Hayes Lancaster, Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. It's bugsbite.com.
Let's get out of here with some Hey Joe questions. Thanks to Oakwood Pizza Box for sponsoring Hey Joe. Check them out online at oakwoodpizzabox.com. From our friend Steve, hey Joe, do you think the 3 new schools are ready for the pettiness of the ACC and how we root for other teams' demise? I know you don't want to acknowledge them, but this is something that Cal and Stanford and SMU are going to have to get used to.
Yeah, they're not ready for that.
No, they're not. They're not ready for, like, Dimitri did a reel the other day that cracked me up, where it's like, so the 2 schools in the ACC that have gotten the 30 for 30 treatment are Miami and SMU. Carolina, what up? FSU, I don't see you. What's going on here? Now, there's been like a Bobby Bowden thing for the ACC network, but not a 30 for 30. This is important. Yeah, I don't think they're ready for that. They'll get their first real taste of that once they get to an ACC basketball tournament. That's when things really happen. This was something that happened. Speaking of Carolina football, what did we make of Max Brown grabbing Shane Beamer by the neck and like, I'm not done talking to you? What do we make of that?
I mean, obviously he's not being forceful there.
Well,
I saw the still, which does make it look like,
yeah,
it does, like, oh my God, did this really happen? Now you watch it, the GIF of it here.
Now look, I might be revealing something about my TikTok algorithm.
Yeah.
But when I saw that neck grab, I thought, there's an entire side of TikTok that would take that, stitch it, and have some really interesting reactions. Just saying. From Cam, great discussion related to the ACC and expansion. Can you guys address this? The NCVA markets are coveted for Big Ten and SEC schools per Pete Thamel. If UNC and Duke lead for the Big Ten, the SEC, at a minimum, Big 12, may come calling for NC State, correct? What football brands are better in NC? There's not. There's not better football brands left in the state of North Carolina if North Carolina goes to the Big Ten. I think the point that I was trying to make with yesterday's expansion as it relates to conferences, we have to get out of the mindset that traditional conferences are going to exist in the next 5 to 10 years. That the next iteration of all this alignment, this realignment, is a super league. And the question you have to ask yourself is whether or not NC State is going to make that, which did get to a question from Jeremy. Why is the bubble limited to 40 when it comes to discussion of a super league? I don't think it's going to be that big. He said, SI came up with hypotheticals, but there's too much value being flushed by limiting it to 40 teams. Would love to see a similar setup to English Premier Football where teams are promoted, demoted based on the performance. Now, Jeremy, I agree with you. I would love to see that too. Here's a problem. Relegation,
we don't love
promotion is not an American concept. We do not want to deal with actual consequences for not putting out a winning product. Hell no. I still want to be able to make money while putting out an inferior product. That's the American way.
Including Notre Dame, there's 66 Power 5 schools right now.
Yes.
I think if they went to 48, sounds like the right number, 224s.
Okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Ovies and Giglio. We will see you Wednesday as we're another step closer to all the football, college and pro. Let's get it.